So, welcome. Thanks for joining me today as we look at Romans chapter 8, verse 29, which says, "For those whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, in order that he might be the firstborn among many brothers." So, verse 29, I would say also in verse 30, which I'll clarify in a minute, Paul here is clarifying what he means by purpose in verse 28. For those who are called according to his purpose. Okay, Paul, what do you mean by purpose? So verse 29, verse 30 are linked together by what has been commonly called the golden chain of salvation. 5 works, 5 activities of God that ensures our complete salvation. So verse 29, we have the word foreknew and predestined, first 2 links of this chain. Then verse 30, he will continue on with called, justified, and glorified. Okay. These are some deep theological terms. We won't have time to go in depth in them, but they represent God's grace to us. So God has done the work of salvation in Jesus, and now what we're seeing here is how God has formed or made saints for that salvation. So God performs salvation, but then he also makes saints for that salvation that they will inherit. So first of all, we have foreknow, the first link of this chain. Now, there's obviously some debate over this word. Some people would understand it in terms of God's ability to look into the future and to see all of humanity and their life and their response to revelation and knowledge of God. And so in this view, God would see some people actually having the ability to trust what God has revealed to them about salvation and turn to him and be saved. And then this would lead to God then predestining them. So God would foreknow, foresee them, and then he would predestine them based on what he knows through his foresight. Another view here, though, would say there's something more going on to foreknowing. This is not just simply God foreknowing things in the future, which of course he knows all things, but this would be more in terms of God for choosing or for loving people. So notice it says in verse 20, for those whom he foreknew, not foreknowing their faith, but actually foreknowing them, setting his love and affection on them. So verse 28, again, it talks about those who love God. This again is emphasizing that God's love, any love for God, actually begins with God's love for us, foreknowing us. And then we have, for those whom he foreknew, he also predestined. This would be God's settled determination, as determination to take an action that's outside any influence. It's just of his sole choosing. And the purpose of this predestining here is to conform those whom he foreknew to be conformed to the image of his Son. Wow, we could take a long time to kind of think about this, but this is amazing. This is the ultimate purpose here, to be conformed to the image of Christ, the eternal Son of God, who's always been the Son, who took on a different kind of sonship, human sonship. So he is God and man. And because he obeyed his Father perfectly, God the Father resurrected him, exalted him, and seated him with glory. So he is the perfect image of God, but also the perfect image of man, which is very important, because again, the book of Romans, this Son of Man, Jesus, he undoes Adam's work for his brethren here. We who are in the image of Adam are now being conformed to the image of Christ. So as we think about human beings and how we were made in God's image, really the image of Christ. And through Christ, the perfect image of God, taking on our humanity, we are a promised inheritance that we will be like him. And this probably refers to his glory that he now has, again, as the exalted Son. So verse 34 says, who is to condemn? Christ Jesus, the one who died, more than that, who was raised, who is at the right hand of God, who indeed is interceding for us. So Jesus is right now at the right hand of God, and we are being made and will be made into that image one day when we see him. And we are his brethren, in order that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. So he is the unique Son, and he is the firstborn. Colossians 1:15 uses that term to refer to Christ's uniqueness, his priority, and his supremacy over all things and all people. And this really highlights how he is set apart from us. But he's not set apart from us completely in every way. Because as we see here, this foreknowledge and predestining, which happened before the world began, according to Ephesians 1:4, is that we would be his brethren. So God's ultimate plan is to highlight, to showcase the glory of the Son, but now we see here, we are a part of that. The glory of the Son is his brethren with him, because we are the ones who see his glory. We praise his glory, we love his glory, and we're beginning to reflect it even now, and one day we will have it perfected in us. And what is leading us that even right now in this life? Well, again, it goes back to verse 28, that all things work together for good. Even right now, God is using all things to conform us to the image of his Son, and by God's grace and by his promise, it will be completed. And so we are on this glorious trajectory that cannot be stopped. And we'll see the completion of it here in verse 30 next time. Thank you.